Welcome to Caucasian Journal video interviews. It's a great pleasure for us to meet Rolande Pryce, who is the new regional country director of World Bank for South Caucasus. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You have been working here for less than a year, and maybe we start with something emotional, interesting, or unexpected which you had here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity and also for the question. I am really honored to be able to represent the World Bank in the South Caucasus. In my view, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia have a lot to be proud of. It's an ancient, rich cultures, extremely beautiful terrain, and you're immediately struck on arrival by the warmth and the hospitality and the passion and the talent of the people. I therefore have been getting to know, as you said, I've been here for a very short while. I've been getting to know the region. And I think the thing that sticks out, maybe something that was unexpected for me, was sort of all of my best experiences have been at the dining table. In Georgia, there is a strong tradition of supra, where people essentially gather and sit and share meals, and this is common among all of the countries. In addition to amazing and wonderful food in each country, there is also a tradition of toasts, and you would have the Toastmaster or Tamada making toasts throughout the meal. And this is usually, for me, it's impressive. I mean, people are very articulate, you know, they speak from the heart, it's extremely genuine. But I have noticed recently there is a sort of the traditional toast to women. And I would say more politically correct gentlemen have been really having a struggle making this toast smooth in this current context. So this, I mean, I think it's fantastic that you're toasting women. So I am not in any way at all, you know, stressed by it. But you can see them, they're saying, they don't want to say beautiful, they're trying to say smart. I mean, it's really quite challenging. So you see a bit how culture is clashing with sort of newness and modern ideas. But for me, that's been my best place, the dinner table.
Should we perhaps start discussing the business things? What has impressed you the most in the Georgia's country portfolio or other countries of your region here?
In the Caucasus, we have been engaging as close partners, the World Bank and these countries for over 32 years. And I think what struck me on arrival was the breadth of the portfolio, the number of different sectors that we are involved in, but also the impact. Impact in general, you're able to see reforms and others, but impact on people. Our portfolio spans infrastructure, energy, water, of course, human capital, so education, health, social protection, some new sectors, digitalization, innovation, agriculture, right? Reaching as well the persons closest to the ground, because of course at the bank we care about eliminating extreme poverty and on a livable planet. And so what strikes you is the long partnership and the breadth of the programs that really touch, multiple sectors. The impact in particular is also impressive. When you have a partnership of such a long time, you're able to have programs over such a long time. And one program that actually comes to mind, and I'd like maybe to highlight two, but one program that comes to mind when one speaks about the time for the engagement is actually in Georgia, the East-West Highway. We were the World Bank, the first development bank to invest in the East-West Highway. And it is a program that has been ongoing now for almost 10 years, total of $2 billion. And I think the best tagline or the most impressive part is that it now allows Georgian citizens and others who will use this roadway to move from one end of Georgia to the other in half the time that it took when we started this work together. It's not just been the World Bank and the government, but there have been a number of other development partners who have helped to finance this program. And persons might say it's a road, yeah, but of course we know that roads connect people, it allows for trade, it allows for business, and so this is a very, very important road. I think the other significant but more new investment is around the Georgia's Human Capital Program, which is a multi-sectoral program covering health, education, and social protection, essentially looking at improving the lives of Georgian citizens. And already we have been able to see results. The program has been under implementation for 2 years. In the education sector, if you'll indulge me, I'll speak to one. I had the joy of going to open what they call a STEAM lab, right? Mm-hmm. Which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And had the opportunity there to engage with students, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, to see what it is that they were doing in these labs. Incredible robotics, the creativity, the confidence that it is building. And what was interesting was the participation of girls, because in the Caucasus in general and in Georgia as well, there is actually a significant gender gap when it comes to women participating in STEM. And if you're not bringing your women with you, you are essentially forgetting 50% of the population and not taking full advantage of all there is to leverage. If I speak to another area under that same human capital program, health, there in these first 2 years, very impressive outcomes. In the past, Georgia had one of the highest out-of-pocket expenditure rates for the average Georgian citizen on medications. So this was something that the government really wanted to address. And through our work with them, our technical work, and through reference pricing, I won't go into the fancy terminology, but in essence, over the past year, we've been able to reduce the average cost or the average retail prices of pharmaceuticals between 40 and 45%, which is, that's being felt in the pockets of Georgians. And for me, it's moments like that, it's being able to be part of reforms like that, that really gives me a great deal of satisfaction and is really, really impressive.
I didn't know that the World Bank is involved in things like pharmaceutical pricing.
We would surprise you.
You mentioned the human capital program. I think there is an index called Human Capital Index. In this list, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan stand next to each other in the very middle of the index. What's the best use of such instruments?
Thank you so much. It's important. What we have found generally, I think, at the bank around indices is that I think it's just human nature. When you rank things, persons want to be at the top of the rankings if it's a good ranking. And so it heightens awareness and attention to what is needed to be on top, so to speak. So it was in 2018, actually, that this Human Capital Index was put to the public, was developed and disseminated. And there it was really about heightening awareness to the current health and educational outcomes of the country as a proxy for what the productivity of the future workforce would be. And there are lots of measures, it's very fancy, they pull in a lot of different reports, etc. But it allows the bank to determine at this point in time how countries are doing, and it allows you to be able to compare across countries, which is what is important, because that is when we get the competition, that is when we get people excited and wanting to do well. And it really has stimulated a conversation around human capital investments that is substantial. As you rightly mentioned, the countries of the South Caucasus are pretty much in the center. They are comparable with their peers, but actually below the average for the Europe and Central Asia region. In all of the countries that we are working in, we have dialogue in different aspects on human capital. And of course, as I mentioned, in Georgia, we have quite a large investment in this area. I think what is important is that it continues to keep the government's close eye because of this desire to do well. It really has brought attention to where there might be gaps, because the indices measure certain things, the level of stunting, education outcomes, etc. And so in order to do better, one has to try to move those particular targets in a positive direction. And it's therefore been extremely helpful in dialogue to be able to get investments and reforms in those areas.
Right. Country partnership framework is the main document on which the cooperation between World Bank and the country is being based. And the World Bank has been working with the government of Georgia on this document. Can you tell us a little bit about the priorities of this cooperation set up in the framework for the next 5 years?
Absolutely. It has been my preoccupation since I've been here, because as you point out, we generally have a guiding document. It's not fixed, but it allows us to articulate what we consider to be, and when I say we, the bank and the government together consider to be the priorities for our mutual engagement. It allows us to speak about not only our financing, but also our analytical work, our technical assistance that the government wishes to benefit from. And it allows us to set targets and objectives together that we would want to meet. This program that we are currently working on focuses on competitiveness, a great deal of connectivity and resilience in effect. And so under this new program, we would expect to see under competitiveness some important investments on infrastructure, on people and skills, because this is critical, right? We're looking to create an environment and to create more jobs. We'd be looking, for example, to do more on innovation and access to finance. When we speak about connectivity, again, it is road connectivity. It can be, trade. It can be energy. It can be digital. All of those aspects are there. And when it comes to resilience, we speak about, the green economy, the green transition, what we're doing in terms of energy security, what we're doing in terms of climate, what we might be doing in terms of fiscal risks, right, and support to the government in those aspects, because resilience doesn't just have to be physical. We also are looking, for example, on strengthening institutions, which we see as an important element of resilience in an economy such as Georgia's. And I think another important piece that this particular country partnership framework will address and has really embraced is this opportunity that the EU accession has for Georgia. This will require a heavy lift from government when it comes to reforms. Georgia has an excellent track record of being a great reformer, but when it comes to now having to fit within the EU, sort of rubric, there will be a number of reforms that are needed in specific sectors to align itself with the EU's general directions. And in that regard, I think the bank can really help to play a role to define the appropriate sequencing, to bring our technical knowledge and skill as needed, to determine the appropriate pace and changes, reforms, and investments that might be needed to allow an acceleration of Georgia's candidacy. So we're excited because we feel already that there is this strong trust between ourselves and the government, and we would feel extremely privileged to be able to help to achieve this goal that is of priority for the government, but most importantly for the people of Georgia.
Since recently we have seen an increase of the role of so-called middle corridor. The World Bank has done a research about the middle corridor, focusing on the infrastructure and the logistics of Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan and Georgia. Could you please perhaps share some of the key findings of the report and what new opportunities is it opening for Georgia?
I'm pleased to talk about this. I can tell you that since I've been here, or before I came, I probably didn't know very much about the Middle Corridor. I had, of course, heard about the Silk Road, and I had to learn a lot on arrival. I think I speak more about the Middle Corridor than any other thing, and so I use that terminology quite a bit. Essentially, it's the old Silk Road. And what has happened, and the Silk Road, essentially the land bridge between Asia to Europe. In long time ago, right, we would have had traders and merchants carrying goods on this path, and it's sort of come back again in a renewed form. And this is, of course, due to the dynamic geopolitical space in which we are currently existing, where there has been a need perhaps to look at alternate routes for being able to trade goods. And so there's been a lot of conversation about the viability of the Middle Corridor. The Middle Corridor being very different than the North Corridor because it is made up of multiple different countries, and therefore you have the challenge of multimodal transportation, meaning boat, rail, road, right? Different modes of transport. But you also have the challenge of different regimes when it might come to customs and others, right? So in the past, it wasn't so simple because people are saying, oh, you know, I have to deal with each and every country. I have to get to the border, get out of my van or vehicle and sort of negotiate or, you know, follow the rules there. And what we've realized is that we need to have an alternative. The world, the globe needs to have an alternative. And so as a development bank, we've been looking very carefully at how we make this viable, right? How we deal with some of the kinks so that persons will be attracted, businesses will be attracted to use this, what might be traditionally a trade corridor, but which we see as an economic corridor. Because not only will you move goods, but with that can come jobs, can come business, right? There'll be a lot of economic productivity around this route. And so our research has really been about that. These are considered the core countries, the anchor countries, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Kazakhstan, from, you know, in Central Asia all the way through. We have looked at what it would take in terms of investments, in terms of reforms to make this work. The report, which we launched a couple of weeks back, called the Middle Trade and Transport Corridor, it's available online, accessible to everyone. Essentially, the first key and most important finding is that the Middle Corridor can triple the volumes of trade between or up to 2030. And when we say triple, it's as compared with 2021. We also know that with the appropriate investments, etc., we could halve the time for transport. What is interesting is not only the passage of goods from Asia to Europe, but also that this corridor could be significant intra-regionally. And so that would be, we anticipate a potential 37% increase in trade between the countries of the Caucasus and Central Asia. That's a big deal. When one looks at all of those elements, we have to say, okay, well, how can we make that happen? And some of it is around, you know, getting the railway in appropriate condition. Some of it is hard infrastructure, which I think is somewhat easy because that's kind of happening at a national level. But where the real magic could happen and where it is difficult is the collaboration among the countries, so that this can be a seamless exercise, so that when one puts one's goods on at Kazakhstan, or somewhere in the middle in Tbilisi or in Azerbaijan, you'll have a very clear sense of the cost. It will be predictable. The timing will be predictable. You will have a very smooth digital process, so paperwork will be smooth. You're not being sort of running into obstacles of language, for example. You're able to track and trace your goods, which is very important for businessmen who are using this sort of transport. And some of that is not currently in place. And so that's where I believe the bank also brings a certain comparative advantage, because we've worked on these large multi-country complex projects and operations. We operate in all of the countries on the route, so to speak. We of course know how to do infrastructure investment, but more importantly, we can deal with the soft side, logistics, trade, digitalization, that will be needed to make it a success.
Thank you. And I think another important project with the government of Georgia is the Black Sea Submarine Cable project. Sounds like a milestone project for the region.
Indeed.
In many ways. So perhaps could you reveal something about it?
I have to say that I'm very popular in the city, and it's mainly because people want me to talk with them about the Black Sea Submarine Cable. I keep thinking that it's because of my great effusive personality, but it's really about the BSSC. The Black Sea Submarine Cable is, as you mentioned, a milestone, a flagship project. It essentially is looking at connectivity, energy security is a key flag, scaling renewable energy, and digital connectivity. In essence, this innovation is about facilitating the transport of energy and digital or connectivity from the Caucasus to Europe, which would be the market for offtake for energy, of course. And it goes very much in the direction of the world right now, right? We're trying to move away from fossil fuels. And so the scaling of renewable energy is important. But I think, again, it's the geopolitical dynamics that has made all of these actors think carefully about energy security, because of course there are strong reliance on energy, some different types of forms of energy from players that might now no longer be as reliable a source for energy. It is a massive undertaking, and it is not Georgia alone. I think that's one of the most important points. Azerbaijan and Georgia are two countries on this side. You have Hungary and Romania and Bulgaria that are looking, I think, to be off-takers. And then you also have Armenia as a potential source of renewable energy that would want to participate. There is already an agreement between some of these countries for the collaboration to start. But Georgia, in some respects, has really been a front runner. And why is that? The geographic location sort of makes it the natural leader, because the expectation is that the cable will emerge on land in Georgia coming from the Black Sea. And therefore, all of the renewable energy will have to come to the grid in Georgia for it to be exported and shared. The expectation, too, is that we will have this digital connectivity, a cable dealing with energy, but another cable for, a submarine cable, fiber optic cable for internet, which is important, I think, for resilience also of the Caucasus, because as we know, there are very few we rely on internet for everything in our lives. There are very few fiber optic cables in the world, and if for any reason one gets cut, everything grinds to a halt. It's like, trying to live your life when you forget your cell phone at home. It's a problem, so to speak. So this is, this project, this program has huge potential, really speaks to coordination and collaboration among countries when it comes to the use of the cable, the digital connectivity, the energy, but also will speak to, or will need to have that same collaboration, not only among the countries but among development partners, because of the fact that it's a mammoth program and likely to be extremely expensive.
Well, thank you very much. Last thing I wanted to ask, if we still have a couple of minutes.
For sure.
Is you are a Jamaican national.
Yes.
You have been studying law in United States and Great Britain.
Yes.
And your previous place of work was Africa.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it seems like you are bringing a lot of cultural diversity and background with you to Georgia. And my question is, with your very busy schedule, do you ever have any time to spend on the cultural richness of this region?
This is a great question, and I thank you for it. One of the best parts of my job is being able to travel and being able to experience cultures deeply, because you live there for a long time. You're right, I'm coming from Rwanda, where I was posted for 3 years. Before that, I was in Indonesia, posted for 4 years, and prior to that, Sri Lanka for 2 years, and prior to that, Washington, D.C., where I was with the World Bank HQ. And prior to that, I lived in my home country and worked for the government for 10 years. So I'm happy to say that I've worked in 5 of the 7 regions of the bank. Moving is hard because you have to uproot your family, you have to leave the friends you've made, but it's exciting because you get to experience culture, but also you really get a chance to get to experience people, right? And how people are socialized. And what I find, or my biggest takeaway, is that we're more similar than we are different. And I have my own personal interest is handcraft and fine arts, and wherever I have been, I've been in places where that is richly abundant, and so I have benefited substantially from that. But I think being in the Caucasus in particular has allowed me to get back to the theater and the arts in a way that is very uplifting for me. I was most recently at the Opera House on Sunday watching ballet and, buying tickets for the symphony. And these are all things that you have different things in each country. Sometimes language prevents you from being able to fully experience some of it. So there's great theater here, but it's generally in Georgian, and my Georgian, frankly, is not that great. But when it comes to being able to look at paintings and being able to watch dance and to listen to the symphony, you don't need language necessarily for that. So I have been enjoying my time a great deal here. And in my travels to Azerbaijan and Armenia, I always am looking out to see whether the Opera House has anything on for me to be able to appreciate those. I also really appreciate folk dances of the particular place. I was a dancer myself in my previous life. I danced with the National Dance Theatre Company of Jamaica. And so folk dance is also something that I look for. Because I think it also tells you a lot about culture. So in that regard, I've been having a great time. In addition to working hard, I've been having a really wonderful time in the region.
That's really nice to know. Thank you very much. And well, I think we are pretty much done. But if you have something else to say, the floor is yours.
I think what I would like to underscore is how privileged we as the World Bank are to have this relationship that we have with each of these three countries and over such a prolonged period. We don't take it for granted that the governments call on us to try to help them address the challenges that they confront. And those challenges are varied and different and sometimes quite complex. Governing is not easy. We take it very seriously that we get that ask and that we have that trust. And we try our best to come up with the best solutions. And maybe the other point I'd like to make is when I say the World Bank, oftentimes people think most about the money, yes? I believe that where the bank does its best work is in the knowledge sphere, being able to bring the global knowledge that we appreciate because we are in 140 countries to an individual problem or challenge to solve. We focus very much on people, which I'm not sure many people know, and being able to bring that experience, that technical knowledge, the financing to help to push the reform or to deliver better public services to people. I think these are areas where we really, really excel. So the privilege of the engagement and the sort of completeness of the World Bank group support are perhaps the 2 points that I'd like to close on.
Well, thank you very much, and you may always count on us, on Caucasian Journal, for raising awareness about your programs in our region, and you are always welcome at Caucasian Journal.
Thank you. I very much appreciate having the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We cover what matters. Caucasian Journal.